exhausted, but you guys are going to be exhausted. You've been filling your brain with a lot of information. I'm Andromeda Stevens. I'm a chiropractor for something like 26 years or so. And I'm also the owner of a Pilates studio and a Pilates certified person. So I kind of come from that background. I have scoliosis. I was not diagnosed as a child. It was kind of like suck it up, buttercup. When I had back pain, nobody helped me until I was in my 40s and I figured it out myself. I went to Dr. Marco for my own treatment, sort of as a crash course. You met him earlier today. He's awesome. So that changed my whole world. I was in pain. Can you hear me? Because I'm allowed to walk out.
Much better.
I was in pain. Thank you. I was in pain pretty much all of my waking hours, and I thought that was just kind of my situation. I don't have a big curve, but I have a lot of pain. So the Schroth therapy for me with Dr. Marco was a game changer, and I went down the rabbit hole and became certified and advanced certified, and then took on Rego and have just like, it's everything I do. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I've been to a lot of conferences, chiropractic and Pilates and otherwise, and this one is killing it, I have to tell you. I'm really just amazed at what a great conference she's putting on, so thank you. So what I want to talk to you about is activities of daily living, which means how you sit and you stand and you sleep and you walk and you are all day. I'm kind of passionate about it because my kids, my adults, all the people that I work with, I always start with this, like when I meet somebody, we do the whole assessment and all that fun stuff, but then I just launch into this part of the program because I feel like it sustains my client, my patients, almost better than anything else. Because I can teach you great exercises and all that good stuff, and I can adjust your spine and send you for a great brace, and you know, you can go and undo all of it. So I want you to notice how many of you are leaning on your right elbow. I was kind of watching you from the back. It's crazy how much you lean to the side. How many of your kids have a right thoracic curvature? Probably most, right? So that was me. I was watching TV and I was in college leaning on my curve for God knows how many years, and it just never even dawned on me. It's a huge part of supporting all of the other therapy you're doing, whether it's Schroth, physical therapy, bracing, anything. The habits of your daily life add up. It's hours of your life versus, an hour or so of therapy, if we're lucky. So let's talk about it. What else was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say, I said everything I was going to say. So Marissa took the words out of my mouth. I was like, we need to get up and stretch, right? Because you did it already. But lengthening your spine a few times a day for your kids is like a huge, big, just like nice habit to get into. Thank you. I appreciate you. Lengthening your spine, I appreciate you too. Lengthening your spine, just pulling up, like that's the first thing I teach in Schroth, is elongate your spine. Everything else is bonus, but you have to pull her apart and lengthen. So with that being said, let's talk about each sort of component of activities of daily living, which is standing. That involves the hips, the pelvis, the trunk and the ribs, the shoulders, the front to back curves, and then carrying stuff around. So I like to tell my kids, and even grown-ups, I'm like, hey, it's a Rubik's Cube. You have all these different layers, like the top layer will do this, and then the next layer will do that, and so on down the line. You have to individually reorganize them and learn how to be, whether you're sitting, standing, sleeping, or exercising. So we want to get everything aligned. We've been talking about this all day, but you can see that standing could be a really big deal. Like a kid could stand or a grown-up could stand, and they just sort of hang out on their curves, not even realizing it. Pushing out that hip, leaning on the top curve, tilting ahead, what have you, and just loading the spine continually in a bad way. So if you have your kid in Schroth therapy, or maybe you're going to, or PT, this is a really important thing that you need to be talking about with the therapist. How should how should my kid be standing? It's a thing. Carrying bags is important. The poor kids, oh my God, with those backpacks, right? What side should they carry it on? Should it be on both shoulders? Should it be on the side that they should be loading away from the curve, or is their curve special and needs to be addressed? It needs to be talked about. Rolling backpacks are my favorite thing, but kids won't do it because it's not cool. But if they will, and some of them will, but college kids will, what arm would it be in if you're going to be dragging around a rolling backpack? Which arm would it be on? Am I going to be rotating worse into my curvature or away from it? I love rolling backpacks if you can talk the kids into it. It's also a matter of the school, right? If they have steps and things, they don't want the kid with a rolling backpack, but they are fabulous. All right, so the next slide is like a Schroth corrective standing posture. This is just an example of one standing posture of pushing the hip in the corrective position, shifting the ribs away from the curvature, so away from the convexity, and then rolling back that shoulder if it's like a really rotated shoulder. And a lot of times I'll say, that doesn't look too bad, that's kind of cute. You can get away with that, and nobody would think that you're doing anything weird, versus who knows what. So this is just an example of a corrective standing posture that you might learn with your Schroth therapist. I just find that a lot of my people that have come to me that have done Schroth already, they never got taught this stuff. Let's start over. It's kind of the foundation of everything. We have to do this first to supplement what you're doing, so you're not just chasing your tail. Doing good exercises, spending the money, going to the therapy, blah, 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 and then going home and undoing it. We're getting in the car and undoing it. So this is a standing posture. Does anybody have their kid in Schroth right now? Oh, okay, about half of you. That's it, only half? I suggest you look into it. All right, then we're going to go on to sitting. So sitting is going to change the load to be really magnified in the torso. So we have to get the hip situated a little bit, because we'll usually have a hip that's pushed out to the right or pushed out to the left, and we need to anchor the correct hip side. Anchoring the hip will really sort of get the foundation organized first so the rest of it can stack. And then the shifting. So we just talked about, you guys were, a lot of you at least, were leaning on the right side. So if you catch your kids doing that, and you know that they have an upper thoracic curve, you know that you have to, gently and with love, correct them to sit at least symmetrically, or to do their left shifting if that's what they were told to do by their Schroth practitioner. The shoulders, again, getting that shoulder back when you're sitting. It's hard when you have a right forward shoulder and you're right-handed, but I can still do it. If I'm working on my computer, I can still get the shoulder back. I even do this in the car. I shift in the car, and I keep my shoulder back. Next is the front to back curve. We talked about that a lot with the bracing, and getting that sagittal curve happy, whether it's a flat back or they're kyphotic or what have you. Those curves really matter, whether you're standing or sitting or sleeping. Next would be the neck, and this is a problem. It wasn't pretty soon after I started doing Schroth therapy and looking at all these x-rays that I saw that all these kids have destroyed neck curves, and I was horrified. We're supposed to have a nice curve that goes inwards to the neck. It's supposed to go this way. And all the kids are flat-necked or reversed necks, and they're kids. So you know what that's caused by, right? The cell phone. So again, gently and with love, get your kids to look up. They can't have their cell phones and their games down here. We have to get our heads up. Not just for gaming and for the devices, the phones and whatnot, but for their schoolwork. I have my computer up just on a little ramp, and that makes a huge difference, just having a slight lift of my head so that it protects my neck curve, because I have the same situation. And then again, elongating. When you're sitting, you can always elongate. So here's our text neck situation going on. We all have our head down. If you just go to the airport on your way home, you'll see everybody looks like this. You've got to get that phone up. You've got to do the best you can. It's not easy to hold your arms up, but your neck is worth it. Text neck, I guess, is now an official diagnosis. left pretty hard. It depends on how hard they will go. If we have a large lumbar curve, I don't want to go too hard to the left, but it is a thing. And then crossing the legs, whether they cross to the right or to the left, it does matter, because that will change what the pelvis is doing. Even if they're sitting on the floor with their feet crossed like this, you could tilt the pelvis quite a bit, whether you're crossing your feet one way or the other. It will really impact your pelvis. And they might hang out on the floor with their friends and be leaning on furniture or just hanging out, and they're all in their curves. So, important moments. Here are the front to back curves when you are sitting, to try to reinforce that. We've all been told, sit up, sit up, sit up straight, but it's not about sitting up straight so much as it's about elongating and finding curve in your back. Most of us could use more lordotic curve when we have scoliosis. Am I going too fast? No, I didn't even have a cough. I just haven't slept. None of us have slept, right? So you saw that shifting photo of that gal just shifting at her desk. Those positions, when magnified, become Schroth exercises. So it's easy to have them dovetail then once they've learned the Schroth exercises. They're like, oh, I can just kind of sit like that regularly without maybe the fancy moments of the breathing, but they can still sit like that. So they really do meld together very nicely with the Schroth exercises. So next, let's talk about sleeping. If your kid is sleeping in a brace, awesome. They don't need anything. They are being supported by their brace all night long. But there's still the matter of mostly people are side sleepers. When they're sleeping on their sides, their shoulders are just going to hang, and the legs will end up sort of like doing a Spider-Man thing where you sort of splat yourself, and then you're twisting your pelvis and you're twisting your shoulders. So I have all my people, regardless of age, get one of those big body pillows, so you're hugging it with your arms, and you're wrapping your legs around it. So your hips and your shoulders are now much, much better stacked, so that we're not tweaking that shoulder girdle or loading pressure on the curves. And it's very comfortable, whether you're in a brace or not, but in a brace it's particularly more comfortable. I just get mine at Costco. They're cheap, they're fabulous. So a side sleeping body pillow is great. If they're not in a brace, you can see that she's doing some pillowing, like bolstering. I feel like I'm yelling. Am I yelling? Okay. It sounds so loud up here. I use bolster pillows in the Schroth exercises, but I like to have them translate to sleeping if they can do it. It really depends on the curve. So this is just an example. And it also will be like, how can they tolerate it? Can it be a big fat pillow? Does it have to be a half pillow? And I just get them on Amazon. But they're really nice and supportive if your kid is like weaning out of a brace or graduated from a brace or just won't wear it. It's nice to have the pillows at least support the curve. And then I mentioned Pilates, so my Pilates clients who have Scoli, when they get on the Pilates machines, that's what they do to support their curves. I was going to say something else about pillowing. It'll come out. So bolstering, pillowing for side sleeping. I usually go pretty careful on this with grown-ups because their spines aren't used to being pushed around like that. They get a little sore. So I go slowly with the grown-ups. So here's the sleeping without that pillow. You see all the twisties and sloshy, it's a mess. It's comfortable, but it's not going to be good for the pelvis. It's not going to be good for the shoulder girdle. And people want to know, well, what's better? Should I be on my side? Should I be on my back? Should I be on my belly? What kind of mattress should I have? Well, belly sleeping is the worst, because I can't fix that. Because you're going to be on your belly, and you're going to be tweaked, and you're going to turn your head really hard. So belly sleeping is the worst if you had to eliminate something. Back sleeping would be the best, because all the curves are just, gravity's neutral. It's fabulous. Most of us can't do that. It's weird. But some people can. Mattresses, the consensus is that just something not crazy soft, like medium to firm is great. If it's really soft, you just sort of fall into that and you have no support. In terms of brand or whatnot, nobody really has any recommendations unless you think of anything, Marissa. Any mattress? Words of wisdom? Yeah. Sleep is key. Yep, that's when all the hormones are surging and melatonin and all that good stuff is happening. So good sleep is very important. Okay, let's talk about, we just spoke a little bit about this today. What sports should they do? What sports should they not do? I actually heard a kid today mention at lunch that she was told by her therapist, don't dance, don't take tango lessons, don't fence. You know, I don't ever want to tell a kid not to do something, because statistically, the kids who exercise, I don't care what it is, their curves do better, because they're just globally stronger and more fit and happier, and they're moving, and it's just healthier for them. If it's a really high impact sport, I'm like, not in love with that, like running, basketball, horseback riding, those are really high impact sports that are really pound on the curves, that are really not up to that loading. So that's really the only thing I sort of shudder at. Overly arching, like you can see this gal is doing a really big back bend. If your kid has a flat back situation with their scoli, which is super common, that's not at the top of my list. I'm not going to say don't ever, never do that, but it's definitely something you want to be aware of. If they're hanging out doing homework like that, and they're arching, or they're doing yoga, or they're doing some gymnastics or whatnot with a lot of back bends, I ask them to dial that down. Twisting is a little problematic, but only if it's like super repetitive on one side and they have, you know, a lot of rotation. But I feel like if it's symmetrical twisting, I think it's healthy and normal lifestyle activity to not eliminate. So I would not be mad at dancing at all. And then there's side bending. So yoga is tough. Yoga is hard to control. Yoga is kind of nothing but these things. But it's symmetrical. So all we're really worried about, in my opinion, would be the high impact activities.